Hello and welcome to True Crime Diary, a light-hearted podcast on a serious subject. Every 2 weeks we look back through true crime stories to discuss an event that took place on This Week in History. I'm your host Mark Decana, and with me as always are my friends Jed Lester.
Hello.
And Rue Turner.
Hello.
The date we're looking at today is the 16th of January, and in 1935, one Ma Barker and her youngest son, Fred, was shot dead by the FBI. It was not the end of the Barker gang story, but it was the end of the matriarch of the gang, Ma Barker.
See, I have a feeling that Jed has got some historical document that he'll be referring to throughout this episode.
You mean akin to our last episode on Rasputin?
I think it comes from the same source as previous documents that he's brought to our attention.
Do I?
Do you?
Don't know.
I'm sure you do.
Have we mentioned Ma Barker before in other, like in passing? I
don't think so, but we have mentioned another member of the gang because she was part of the Barker-Karpis gang. And we've mentioned Alvin Karpis many times.
Why have we mentioned him?
Well, he was the longest serving inmate at Alcatraz.
Yes, in Alcatraz.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and he was the only one of those in the 1933 to 35 period who was called America's Most Wanted to live, to be arrested alive.
Oh.
The others were all shot dead.
That's a nugget I didn't know.
Well, you did know because we have discussed it before.
America's Most Dead.
Yeah, you did know that. You just forgot.
Yeah.
Hold away.
I hadn't collected all those little pieces together into one fact.
Don't worry, I've forgotten. What was my source?
Well, Boney M did a song.
Yeah. About what?
Ma Baker.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Hang on.
The meanest cat from old Chicago town. She taught her 4 sons to handle their guns, apparently.
Is that true?
Well, probably not.
Yeah.
Probably none of it.
Considering the title of the song is wrong already.
Well, they changed the name of the song because they thought it sounded better.
I have to agree with that.
Daddy cool.
Ma Baker sounds far better than Ma Barker.
Yeah, I don't think they had to rhyme anything with it. They just liked the sound of it.
Ma Baker.
Ma Baker.
It does. It passes better.
Freeze! I'm Ma Baker. Put your hands in the air. Give me all your money.
Is there a theme developing? Is the next week's about cool fathers?
There's a very strange... I did not notice this until...
If we put all these episodes next to each other, will the initials spell out disco or something?
Yeah.
No, I didn't notice this until well in, but every episode has a connection to the previous episode.
It does it?
Yeah. For some reason, completely out of nowhere. I mean, it's done on date, and the years are always way different. So now we've done 2 that have Boney M songs in a row.
Yeah.
So they've both connected by Boney M songs.
Right. Okay. So random things each time.
There's always a random thing that connects.
Anyway, tune in next week for the Rivers of Babylon murder series. So Mrs. Barker was the leader of the Barker gang.
Allegedly, yes.
So claimed. Some of them.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Right. I'd have called it something else.
What would you have called it?
Well, I just wouldn't have called it my surname.
Well, it wasn't her surname.
Her surname.
Her real name was Arizona Donnie Clark.
That's a good name, isn't it?
Also known as Kate Barker, better known as Ma Barker.
All right, fine. So it wasn't their name. Carry on.
Well, she, Ma,
yes,
had a reputation that was, I think, probably mostly given to her by the FBI as a vicious, dangerous and resourceful criminal brain.
Hiya, Ma. How's my best girl?
However, someone who knew her, Harvey Bailey, a notorious bank robber, he was a friend of the family, he wrote an autobiography and said Ma Barker couldn't plan breakfast, let alone be a criminal mastermind.
Where are we talking about in America?
Well, with Prohibition era Midwest United States.
And we're talking about robberies and stuff, are we?
We're talking about robbery, we're talking about kidnapping, bank robbery.
Yep.
Usual thing. So, if you recall from previous episodes, we talked about people like Bonnie and Clyde, we talked about Dillinger's gang.
Yep.
So the Dillinger gang, the Parker gang, all of these people, they had very similar MO, basically. So some bank robbery, a lot of small like liquor store robberies, that sort of thing, and some kidnapping, all the same sort of period.
Same period, right, okay. Yeah,
they were all contemporaries of
It's a golden age.
It was a golden age, yeah, very much so. It's referred to as...
the Golden Age.
It's referred to as the Public Enemy era.
Okay.
Another world, another time, in the age of wonder.
Right, okay, so we are mid... Is this depression?
Yes.
Right. No, I'm just talking about you.
So depressing.
Talking about you and Rue.
Yeah. This is what depression looks like.
Is that a diagnosis or a question?
Yeah, the thing about people who are depressed, they always record.
They always do podcasts.
Stupid thoughts. Yeah. So we're mid-depression and like making loads of money on the side era.
Yeah.
You know that
You
era.
could call it that, yeah.
Anyway, get on with it. What have we established so far? A name and the era. Is there a Pa Barker?
There is a Pa. So Pa Barker is George Barker.
George Barker.
And Ma Barker out of Missouri. 4 sons, Herman, Lloyd, Arthur and Fred.
Would he be Pa, do you think, or would he be Pop? Or Papa?
No, that would be Mom and Pop, so it'd be Ma and Pa.
Okay.
Good. Daddy.
They were born late 1800s, early 1900s, so sort of those are the first few years of the turn of the century. Eldest son, Herman, was arrested for highway robbery in 1910. So this is way before. They were a gang, like, throughout
Time.
their youth, and right up to
I was going to say, he's not going to be very old, is he?
So he was 17. So he would have been 17 when he was arrested for highway robbery.
Yep.
And then the whole family, well, all the brothers at least, were in gangs, and they were in the Central Park gang, which was during Prohibition.
Yep.
Was Central Park not a sort of reserved green space at that time, was it?
It's not that Central Park.
But
called
you're right. We're not talking about that Central Park, but you're
it's
right.
not a different...
No,
you're
it's
right.
in Oklahoma.
Right.
It wasn't a reserved green space.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about that.
But we're not talking about that.
Yeah.
Shut up. Don't mention that.
I think we're just talking about a park that is central.
Or they park their cars in the centre. Where the
Barker-Karpis.
They would have had cars.
Would they?
Well, they would have had a car, or they would have nicked a car.
Yeah, hijacked.
Now, Herman died in 1927 in a gunfight with the police.
Oh, yeah.
He shot a policeman point blank range and then killed himself to avoid prosecution.
Oh, okay.
In the shootout.
Right, fine.
After a robbery. In 1928, Lloyd was imprisoned in Leavenworth, Kansas.
Yes.
And Arthur was in Oklahoma State Prison.
So they're dead, prison.
Yeah.
Currently.
And young Fred
And
was
the other one?
Young Fred was in Kansas State Prison.
So dead, prison.
Dead, prison. Yeah. George, Pa Barker,
yes,
maybe was thrown out.
We get thrown out of prison?
Thrown out of the family.
Stay out.
All right.
Or he left of his own volition.
Yep.
And now I'll leave you.
The FBI said that he left because she was loose morals, basically painting a picture of Ma as basically like the worst of the worst at the time.
So when did he leave? After all,
1928, while the others were all in prison.
Dead, prison, post dead, prison, and that's when he decided.
And that's when
actually, do you know what? This lot got loose morals.
Yeah.
Well done, mate.
Yeah, quite right.
Something tells me that this family's morals are slightly loose after all that kerfuffle.
Yeah. And at the time, the family would have been living in like a wooden shack with dirt floor, kind of. They were supreme poverty.
Sure, yeah. Okay. That's what I'm saying. They wouldn't have had a car.
No, but they could nick.
Oh, yeah, all right, yeah.
They were criminals. Criminals, I tell you.
That's true.
So in 1931, Fred, the youngest...
Yes, he was in prison.
Who was in prison. He was released
from
prison, 1931, and a former cellmate of his, or prison mate certainly, Alvin Karpis, they joined together to form the Barker-Karpis gang.
Oh, yeah.
Did we just become best friends? Yep!
Again, I would have thought of another name, but...
I don't know if
like a company...
Yes. Well, the criminals are not great on marketing or branding, are they?
Yeah, but some are.
Some are, true. Some are.
Well, that could well be the name that was given to them by the media or the Pope.
You don't always get to choose your name. You just go out robbing people, and then from the outside, people name you.
Yeah, all right, yeah, okay. You're just robbing people, aren't you? Yeah. Right. Before we go into this bank, what are we called?
What are we called? I want it to be called the Karpis Barker Gang, damn it. No, Barker-Karpis.
Yeah, we came to you first.
Damn you.
Alvin and the... I know, is he called Alvin?
It's called Alvin, yeah.
Oh, yeah, so he could have done a...
If only the brothers were called Theodore.
It probably wasn't invented, was it? Alvin and the... Anyway.
So 1931, so the Barker-Karpis gang commit robberies.
Rob? That's a naughty word. We never rob. We just sort of borrow a bit from those who can afford it.
And then in Missouri, 19th of December 1931, the two of them shot one Sheriff C. Roy Kelly and then had to flee the territory. So the Barker-Karpis gang...
During a robbery kind of thing.
During a robbery, yes. Yeah. So then they had to flee. So Ma and her boyfriend at the time, one man named Dunlop, they went with them. So there's Karpis, baby Fred Barker, Ma Barker and Dunlop. They all flee. And
why did they go with him? Are they nothing to do with it?
It was just her son.
Well, I know, but were they nothing to do with it?
They weren't involved in the robbery.
But they made themselves involved by fleeing with them.
Yeah.
It's a bit stupid.
How you feel about your family is a complicated thing.
So in pursuit of this gang, as it was then called, there was a wanted poster issued offering $100 reward for the capture of Old Lady Ari Barker as an accomplice.
Okay. See, that's what I'm saying.
Short for Arizona.
She could have got a... Oh, yeah, Arizona, yeah. She could have had a different life if she hadn't have gone, I'll come with you. Is that what it said? It didn't say Alvin and the... what was he called? Kenny or something?
Kenny? Fred.
Yeah. The Fred Barker. Who did it.
What done it.
And she said, oh, I'll give you a piggyback or whatever. And now the poster is directed at her.
Yes, as an accomplice, yeah.
For complicity in robbery and in murder.
But even so...
Well, there would have been posters for them as well.
Right,
because there was a poster that listed her specifically.
I suppose, she's like the mature adult in this family.
I suppose
the father's fled or dead.
Fled.
Yeah. And the boys are just kids.
Well, they are by then. I don't think they are they? They're like mid-20s, aren't
She'd
they?
still
or
be seen
older?
as being the mature adult of the group.
All right,
yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, maybe that's partly why the FBI and the police always thought of her as the matriarch, because they were still relatively young. Mind you, Bonnie Parker was only 20.
Yeah.
All kids, aren't they? Foolish children.
Yeah.
1932, Brother Arthur, also known as Doc.
Arthur Barker,
was released from prison.
Yes,
he joined the gang. He, Fred and Karpis.
Yep.
And obviously, again, the gang's getting bigger because of people revolving in and out. Now, they moved to Chicago for a short time.
One of the gang was offered a job with Capone, and he didn't want to work with him, so he turned it down and moved to another town.
Well, there were members of the Chicago outfit, Capone's gang, who were members of the Barker-Karpis gang from time to time. Like all of these gangs at the time.
Yeah.
Freelance. Membership rotated.
Oh, yes. You've said that before.
If you're in the underworld, you're meeting people under...
Likewise.
I think it was Alvin Karpis that didn't want to work for Capone, actually, now that you mention it.
Okay.
Me? Work for that hairy-titted yeti?
You'd think they'd be well up for that, with the big boys.
Maybe they just didn't want to work for someone else. They've got their own gang.
Yeah.
Or and in Chicago, you got to work for Scarface or no one.
Yeah. Right, okay.
And you certainly can't get involved in alcohol or...
Yeah, well, they were bank robbers,
Their dealings.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that wasn't the thing, that it was come and work with... sorry.
Yeah.
But anyway, regardless, he said, nah, I'm all right.
I'm all right, mate. So they moved to Minnesota from Chicago.
Yeah.
And did Ma's boyfriend go with them? Was it Dunlop?
At the time, yes.
Okay. So she hadn't grown tired of him
yet? No, not yet. But he wasn't trusted by the gang because he was a drunkard and he had a tendency to get chatty when he was drunk. So he was a bit of a...
Blabbermouth.
Right. Yeah.
If you shoot half as good as you blabbermouth, you're better than Robin Hood.
Karpis said he was a pain in the ass.
What, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Wheelie.
That's a a direct quote.
Okay.
So they moved to St. Paul in Minnesota.
St. Paul?
St. Paul.
Yeah.
Which at the time was kind of known as a place where wanted criminals would go and hang out.
Really?
Yeah.
Set up an FBI base there.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Well, because the police chief of St. Paul, Big Tom Brown, was basically protected criminals. He was corrupt cop.
Oh, was he? Right, okay.
Yeah.
Corrupt Tom Brown.
In fact, if anything, he was worse than a corrupt cop. He didn't look the other way. He actively helped and trained criminals to be better criminals.
Oh,
cool.
Yeah.
And no doubt was paid handsomely for that.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. So when they got to St. Paul, they were bank robbers, and when they left, they learned how to be kidnappers as well.
Oh, okay, right.
So then they relocated to a place called Menominee.
Menominee?
Menominee.
Menominee?
Yes, Menominee, Wisconsin.
Just clearing that up. Wisconsin?
So while there,
yes,
in that town, Ma Barker was mostly separate from the gang. She was hidden away, partly not to learn what the gang was up to protect her from the crimes.
She's too far gone in that respect.
Well,
I mean, giving her a lift.
Well, if she's the mastermind of the gang, why is
she though?
Well, exactly. If, as alleged, she's mastermind, how come she's being kept away from the gang?
Well,
so
you're suggesting she isn't?
Yeah, I think she's complicit.
She's just
but
a
she's
loving
not the master.
mum who wants to
just a mum
put them up in a
hanging around with her kids.
What do you call it? Safe house or something?
Safe house. Yeah.
She's no more the mastermind than Mrs. Cray ran the West End.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, they loved their mum and they supported her.
Yeah.
But she wasn't running it. You know.
Yeah, but how? That's the name we know all these years later.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Not Alvin and Kenny.
Alvin and his
Fred.
The Ken monks.
Ian, Bob and Brian. We know her, don't we? We know
her. She's the only one who had a song written about her.
Yeah. Almost.
Exactly. Yeah. Right, okay. So she's hiding away from their loose tongues.
Yeah. Well, the most likely reason to keep her hidden away and protected from the gang was so that the gang could hang out with their girlfriends.
Oh, right. Fine. Yeah.
Plausible deniability.
Yeah, she apparently, protective mother that she was, didn't like any of their girlfriends.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ma, please, first of all, we didn't do it, all right?
Where are we in the kind of levels of notoriety, current notoriety in America of that of those people? Are they quite high up and well known? I don't mean then. I mean now.
Now
they're
not wanted. They're all dead.
Do people know who they are? Are they like legends?
I would say so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, they haven't got the notoriety perhaps as Bonnie and Clyde. They haven't had as many movies made about them.
Al Capone. Yeah.
Al Capone.
Public Enemy. That lot.
Yeah.
Public Enemy number 2. Go on, kill a load of vicars.
What I gotta do?
Exactly, yeah. Kill a load of nuns to get bump yourself up.
I don't think the 10 Most Wanted list started until after the 30s, so...
Maybe they only had 2 or 3, but
we've just
up to a good 10.
We've just confused it with Public Enemy, blah blah blah. Yeah.
Because they only ever said they had Public Enemy number 1, and then when they caught them or killed them, then they'd say, "Well, now you're Public Enemy."
Yeah.
But they don't have a like.
Hi, is that number 2? Yeah. You've been upgraded.
Hello, Public Enemy number 2.
So
Good morning. Good morning.
Delighted. Thanks for letting me know.
Up from number 2. You place at number 1.
Americans. Yeah.
So now we get to 1933. June, the gang kidnapped William Ham of Ham's Brewery.
Yep.
And they keep him for about a month.
I'm sorry, this is our family's first kidnapping.
He's ransomed and they get $100,000 ransom.
Wow.
Yes.
$100,000 in 1933. This then is about $2.25 million.
$2.25 million.
That's meaty. Ham. In today's money?
Yeah.
Hang on, who paid that then? The Hams?
the Ham dynasty, the brewery.
Wow.
Yeah.
To get him back.
To get him back, yes. And he was released.
Because they got their money.
Yeah. And then in January of 1934, Edward Bremer was kidnapped in St. Paul in broad daylight. And they kept him for about a month, and he netted them $200,000.
That's, $4.5 million.
It's never just daylight, is it? It's always broad.
It's broad daylight.
You kidnapped him in daylight.
$6.75 million.
Yeah.
You'd think he'd
Isn't
stop.
it? Yeah, well, isn't that enough?
Stop
You know, I mean...
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big jump from a dirt
Crim's got
floor
a big
shack.
But
it is.
Crim's got a crim.
Crim's got a crim.
Yeah. But the problem is, as far as the gang was concerned, if you're folk heroes, like Bonnie and Clyde and what have you, this is now, these kind of kidnappings at this point weren't about robbing banks. They were now about individuals and people. Yeah. And this is at the time of the Lindbergh kidnapping, the baby kidnapping.
Yeah.
And of course, people thought, well, this isn't kidnapping.
Started turning against them.
Yeah. So people weren't too happy about that. Even
before that, kidnapping's great. Let's all do kidnaps.
Nothing wrong with it.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, when the kids are involved, it always gets a bit...
Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
Always goes down a bit, doesn't it? But, I mean, before that, bank robbery, you come out of the Depression and everyone hated the banks back then.
Sure, yeah.
But the President Roosevelt, Franklin, he mentioned the kidnapping. He did what is called fireside chats on the radio, and he mentioned the kidnappings in one of those.
Wow.
So that's got all the way to the White House.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, and that attitude would then filter back down again, obviously, if he's talking about them.
Yeah, exactly. And we've talked about Public Enemy number 1 at some length.
Yes.
Even today. Now, one of the people who was Public Enemy number 1, and I mentioned this before, it was Lester Gillis, Babyface Nelson. He was shot dead on November 27th, 1934, and he was Public Enemy number 1.
Right. Making room at the top.
Making room at the top. And the next day, Alvin Karpis was declared Public Enemy number 1.
Yeah.
Public Enemy Junior, huh? Well, he'll show him.
Which meant that he was now the main focus of the FBI.
But he was thrilled.
That is the downside, I suppose, of being number 1.
Yeah.
We're
focus
number 1. We're number 1. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Hello, my name's Mark Decano, and I host the Comedy in a Nutshell podcast, in which I talk with those in and around the comedy circuit, and most especially the comedians, about what comedy means to them.
Simon Amstel plus Lena Dunham plus Mr. Blobby. I thought that would be a good combo.
Every gig you get is somebody else not getting a gig.
I've had people pull out a notepad and I've been like, oh no, thank you.
You are a jester and you're here to bring light relief to people's lives.
Somebody at the end was like, oh my God, she's dirty. And I was like, thank you very much.
My boyfriend says he feels like he has to tread very carefully because he was like, I know that everything has the potential to become material.
I can now give to people and they definitely in that moment are having a good time.
So if you want to know more about what comedy means to the people at its heart, then hear it straight from the horse's mouth. Comedy in a Nutshell, wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to Fringe, baby.
So various members of the gang were caught and shot down. Doc Barker was arrested in January 1935. And while arrested, they found a map and letters indicating where Fred and Ma Barker were hiding.
Who did a map of it?
Had a map.
It's really lovely.
We're here.
It's on a blackboard as well in chalk.
It's like, why on earth? It's like, oh, for God's
just
sake.
like you'd see in a bad gangster movie.
Can't you just remember it? Why have you... who did this map?
I don't remember the address, but this is exactly where the house is.
With a massive X.
Can you imagine like, a room full of FBI guys behind little desks and there's someone at the front drawing on the blackboard?
So we go down this road here, there's one house.
Basically,
for 50 miles in any direction.
As if it's a densely packed. Yeah.
McCluskey and Johnson, I want you round the back.
McCluskey and Johnson.
They've got to be good 30s cop names, haven't they?
O'Halloran.
So the FBI went along and there was a 4-hour shootout.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Well,
that's
have to reload at some point.
You picture it, isn't it? But it's almost certainly just pop. Ooh, hide. Pop.
Yeah, they probably said, "Oh, hold your fire for an hour. Yeah. We're going to lunch."
Yeah.
You guys need anything? Books, papers, cigarettes, ham sandwich?
Yeah. Now, after these many hours...
4 of them.
4 of them. It's still not...
It was the 5th.
4 more hours. So the FBI, having surrounded the house, having taken part in this gunfight, they thought that other gang members were in the house. They didn't know it was only Fred and Ma in the house, but the others had left 3 days earlier.
Right.
So hang on, 2 people did a 4-hour.
2 people did a 4-hour.
And one of them was the mum.
And one of them was the mum, who may actually not have taken... She might not even have taken part in it. It might have been FBI versus Fred.
Kenny, yeah.
Kenny / Fred.
I'm thinking... I tell you what, I'm thinking of Kenny Baker. That's what I've just realised.
It's not even Baker.
I know it's Kenny Barker, but Boney M say Baker, don't it?
I do. It's good to...
Slightly roundabout. I've just realised why I said Kenny.
It's good that your main
if you've
point
been
of
referring to your historical documents correctly, you'd know.
Yeah, I know.
Once again, your main point of reference for information is a fictional... a song about a fictional family.
Yeah. Who played an Ewok.
He did.
So it might have just been him against however many police.
It may well have been just him,
Probably
yes.
unlikely. Do you reckon? 4-hour shoot. I mean, they would have known it's one, as opposed to, there's another gun over there. They would, meaning...
He might have
How he must have shot from upstairs and then run downstairs and fired out through the kitchen.
How many, surely they would have worked out that there's one shooter.
Well...
Aim at the shooter.
Doesn't matter, does it? How many people are shooting at you? If someone's shooting at you, what are you going to do?
I suppose so.
Because you're going to be hiding behind the car or rock or whatever.
A bush.
You could, or tree.
It wasn't... It's lucky it wasn't in England or Australia, because typically we set fire to the house.
Yeah.
If our other stories are anything to go by, we just would have burned the house down with them in it. But I mean, 4-hour gunfight. People came to watch.
Of course they
brought picnics.
Great.
Can you imagine?
What would you bring to? I'd bring a quiche.
A quiche?
Yeah.
Oh, you never go wrong with
Quiche,
a quiche.
good picnic food.
I know.
Some
So they
chicken
didn't set
wrapped in
fire
foil.
They didn't set fire to it.
Oh, if they did have done it, I would have bought some marshmallows.
It was, fire marshmallows. Everyone knows
Scotch
that.
egg.
A Scotch egg, some light sandwiches, chicken wings.
We've got sausage tart and marmalade rolls.
Yeah, be great.
Yeah. Actually, I'm quite hungry now.
What time of year
how
is
many?
it?
The town's people, basically.
The townspeople, the folk, the local folk.
Wow.
They came by to watch.
That's what's humans for you.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Got a rubberneck.
Car. Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Again, a great moment when they finally stopped shooting, when no more bullets coming from the house.
Sure.
Kenny came out with his arms up.
No one came out. Shooting stopped.
Oh my God, they killed Kenny.
You bastard!
His name's not Kenny, it's Fred. Fred's his name. Now, the FBI, they needed to go into the house, obviously.
Sure.
So what they did was they got the local handyman, Willie Woodbury, and they ordered him to go in and look in the house.
Why didn't they go in?
They said, here's a bulletproof vest.
Willie
Woodbury.
To
go in and...
pick the lock?
Yeah, basically. Well, he's a local handyman. They said, get in there and...
How did you get in there?
Who are you and how did you
Who
get
are
in?
you?
I'm the locksmith. And I'm the locksmith.
2 bodies were found in the house. Dead bodies. Fred's body was riddled.
Look, Ma! I'm roadkill! Ha ha ha!
So it did work. The shootings.
The shooting stopped because Fred was dead.
Presumably after 4 hours, otherwise.
After 4 hours. He didn't die an hour in, and they just kept shooting for 3 hours.
Drop dead Fred.
Keep shooting.
Now, this is interesting, because Fred, riddled with bullets, Ma...
One of the bodies.
...died one single gunshot wound.
Oh. Why is that interesting? That could happen.
Because...
It's in your brain.
Because, the FBI said she had a Tommy gun in her hands.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But that might not be true. They might have said that because apparently the Tommy gun was lying between them, which would imply that Fred was using the Tommy gun, not her. But she died a single gunshot wound. It could have been self-inflicted. Unknown.
You could work it out, though. Say it was there.
In the chest.
From an angle, as opposed to meaning shot by police, basically, if you're facing a window.
I mean, that's the implication, isn't it?
You said she might not be
I think it was unclear, and that's the point, that you couldn't establish specifically. This was definitely...
I don't know if we have quite the same ballistic analysis then.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but angles, you could work it out.
Yeah. But then you move, don't you, when you've been shot?
Or she was executed by the FBI.
Or she was killed by what's he called? Kenny.
Fred.
Because she said, "Oh, don't let them take me alive," or I don't know.
You mean like a suicide
Mercy,
pact?
yeah, not mercy, but yeah.
A mercy killing?
Knowing that he was going to die.
It could have been any combination. He could have taken a few bullets, been dying, and she said, "Oh, kill me before you go."
Yeah.
Or he could have been killed, and she decided, "Oh, I'm not going to live."
Yes. Yeah.
So either Fred killed her, or the FBI killed her after they went in, or the FBI killed her in the gunfire. Or she killed her.
By the way, where are the other brothers? Are they both the two? No, there's three other brothers.
They'd gone elsewhere to do crimes.
Oh, okay, right. For some reason, I thought they were the last two.
They were not the last two.
Okay.
Lloyd Barker is still around, and Arthur Doc Barker is still around.
Yeah, Doc.
And Alvin Karpis is still around.
Ronnie, he went into comedy.
Ronnie Barker. The two bodies, Fred Barker and Mar Barker, were put on public display.
Oh, God, they always are.
As they do.
Oh, that was the most sickening display I've ever seen.
Well, one of them got loads of holes in.
Yeah, well, they like all of that, don't they?
No, okay. Wow.
And then they were put in storage until October of 1935, when they were finally buried in Oklahoma next to Herman Barker. The
Storage. I bet it was just
in a cupboard
shed.
A lock-up.
Yeah.
It wasn't exactly cryogenically freezer conditions, was it?
No.
Kept at the mortuary in a fridge.
God.
I doubt.
No, I very much doubt.
Reminds me of...
when you killed your parents.
Who's the chap who became the protector of England?
Cromwell.
Cromwell. His head was on a spike for 25 years.
25 years, yes.
Really?
Yeah. You could just cross the bridge and see it there on a spike.
Just
for all to see.
Gradually.
It blew off in a storm, and they decided not to bother putting it back up again.
Yeah, right,
it's in a drawer in Checkers now.
Yes.
Well.
It's in a drawer. Can you believe it?
That's brilliant.
The Lord
so says Giles Brandreth, anyway.
So says Giles Brandreth, yes. Yeah. Well, he was an MP, so he would have seen it.
Yeah, I suppose
he claims to.
He would have gone to Checkers.
Yeah. Alvin Karpis stayed on the run for a while. He had quite a sinister smile, and people referred to him as Creepy Karpis.
Oh, okay.
Because he's had a
That's good
smile.
branding.
Yeah, branding. It's all branding.
Yeah. Alliteration always works.
Yeah.
Another year and a half, nearly. He did an armoured car robbery, a train robbery in 1935. He was arrested May 1936, and head of the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, took personal credit for his arrest.
Really?
Yeah.
Personal credit.
Yeah. I don't know if we mentioned this. Might have mentioned it in the Alcatraz episode. But the FBI, or the BI, as it was called at the time, the Bureau of Investigation, desperately needed to get some sort of...
figurehead arrest.
Yeah, they need to get some validation.
A big one.
Yeah. So they wanted to get a big arrest. So they basically...
Because they wanted to get federated.
Because they wanted to get federated.
Yeah.
So when they found Karpis, they found him in New Orleans, or Narlands, and J. Edgar Hoover flew in to make the arrest. So they basically surrounded him, and there was like a dozen FBI agents. They swarmed his car, and then they basically just held him there so that Hoover could come up and say, "You're under arrest."
Yeah. You need to wait a bit until J. Edgar turns up.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing about that is no one brought any handcuffs with them. So when Hoover said, "Okay, cuff him," they said, "Well, no one had any handcuffs."
You're going to arrest him. You cuff him.
Well, yeah. So they basically they tied his hands with a necktie. That's all they had on them because they were all agents all wearing ties. Classic. So Karpis went to Alcatraz.
Is that a kind of southern cowboy necktie or a?
Oh no, not a bolo.
Yeah,
a bolo. No.
Bolo. Because that's just a piece of rope, really, isn't it?
Basically, a piece of rope. Yeah. No, it was it was an actual tie, a necktie, like we would know.
A clip-on.
Sure, why not?
They're FBI.
Yeah.
It'd be a clip-on now.
It'd be clip-on.
Not at the time, no.
Clip his hands together.
So Arthur Doc Barker had been sent to Alcatraz the summer of 35. Karpis went in after his arrest.
Yep.
And Barker tried to escape Alcatraz in 1939. He was shot dead in the attempt.
Okay.
Don't even look at me, all right? I'm in trouble here.
An example to them all.
Later, at McNeil Island, Alvin Karpis began to teach guitar. He taught guitar to a guy he called Little Charlie, but we would know him as Charles Manson.
Blimey, really?
Yeah. He said it was time someone did something for him.
Enough.
He was paroled in 1969 when he was then deported to Canada, and he wrote 2 books. One in 1971 called The Alvin Karpis Story, which is I have, and one in 1979 called On the Rock, about his time in Alcatraz. He served 33 years at Alcatraz, longest serving inmate.
Wow. But he was fully let go and freed, and but apart from being deported.
Yeah, he got out eventually. They closed Alcatraz because it was too expensive to run, and that's when he was moved to the other penitentiary where he met Charlie Manson.
Oh, yeah.
He died in 1979 of natural causes.
And he was quite old then, was he?
He would have been 72 at the time of his death. He died in Spain, in Torremolinos.
Really?
Yes.
Right.
Some members of the Barker-Karpis gang were, well, they had plastic surgery to have, like, to avoid
We've talked about
discovery.
plastic surgery.
Yeah, Dillinger had the surgery, yeah.
That's true.
When Karpis got away, he had plastic surgery.
Did he?
I think he changed his fingerprints or something, or he had them removed.
There's some good references to that in that 1961 The Witness episode, when they bring in a guy who apparently was forced to go to a plastic surgeon by Mar Barker, and he comes in, his fingers are all twisted and his face is all contorted. But I was surprised that plastic surgery was quite popular in the 30s amongst sort of actors and famous people. Yeah.
Changing what?
Changing their noses, their cheekbones.
Seems very early to be.
Because it is older than I thought it was.
Old as the hills.
Really?
Yeah. And the first documented case of a nose job is in a book published in 1460.
Right.
It's like 15th century. There was reference. I mean, it clearly was a sophisticated procedure. So it must have been going on a long time before that. But this documents what they would do is they would make a leather cast of your nose. Right? So mould a piece of leather to match your nose, and then place it on your forearm and draw around it, and then cut that out.
Yeah.
And just leave the septum part, the bottom of the nose, connected to your arm still.
Right.
And then strap your arm to your head.
To your head.
And put that flap of skin over where your nose would be. So it's still connected to your arm.
Yeah.
Now it's laying on top of your nose.
Into your nasal area.
For several months.
Then your arm will be strapped in place for an awkward 8 to 10 days, apparently. That's all it would take.
All? Right,
for the blood vessels and the nerve endings to knit in.
Jesus.
And then cut it off from your arm.
So is that
growing an ear on a
is
mouse?
that a skin graft? Or
Yeah,
as
it's
opposed to
a skin graft.
Changing in shape.
And that was developed again in Calcutta a little bit later.
That's pretty good.
But they'd do it in Calcutta on the forehead, so they'd cut the nose shape out at the top of your forehead, a big triangle.
I mean, the arm's,
and then flap
better,
that down
the arm's better.
and rotate it.
Just flap it down, yeah, of course, yeah.
And then you wouldn't have to have your arm strapped
Did
to your
they only
head.
do
But you would have a
noses?
big triangle of scar on your forehead.
Yeah.
Of course, during the First and Second World War, plastic surgery just skyrocketed because it was necessary to remove a lot of disfigurements from. But a lot of it was really beautifully documented by a British artist called Henry Tonks. A fantastic pastel drawings that he did of young soldiers with bits of their face sort of missing and the surgeries that they were having. Really beautiful drawings there in the National Gallery, if anyone gets a chance to see them. I mean, it's quite macabre, but they are very beautiful.
Yeah, like that exhibition, the Bodies exhibition.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I've forgotten his name. That German guy.
So Alvin Karpis, when he was released, I told you he was deported to Canada.
He was.
This wasn't as easy as it might have initially seemed, because he couldn't get a passport because he had all his fingerprints removed.
What is your nationality? I'm a drunkard.
So there's a doctor named Joseph Moran who worked with, obviously he did stuff for Dillinger as well, who also had his fingerprints removed and some plastic
arguably,
surgery.
if you've had your finger, like, does this? I mean, fingerprint is an odd word to choose, because if you remove the skin from the tips of your fingers, you still have a fingerprint. In fact, it's possibly more recognisable
because there's
than
no
the prints you had before.
indentations.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, apparently
it may be hard to match to the ones you left at a crime scene.
Yeah. I mean, he got a passport because they deported him, but he needed a passport to cross into Canada, and they had difficulty getting one because he had no fingerprints. So obviously, eventually, maybe they used that argument. He's got the fingerprints with nothing on them.
10 blobs. 10 circles.
Boney M.
So we've mentioned Boney M. Yes. Ma Baker. 1977. That was also covered by a German comedy rock band, a German heavy metal band, and it was sampled by Lady Gaga in Poker Face.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Cool.
Gaga.
Lady Gaga. TV and film, probably White Heat is the most famous. Ma Jarrett, Jimmy Cagney movie from 1949.
It's classic Cagney stuff.
Absolute classic Cagney, yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that.
Top of the world, Ma.
Top of the world, son. Don't know what I'd do without you, Ma.
There's a whole bunch. The TV shows, things like Gangbusters from the 50s, The Untouchables from the 50s.
I saw...
They all have episodes on it.
There's a really nice episode of The Witness, which does a courtroom reenactment. Well, not a reenactment, because it never happened, but had Ma Baker gone to court to defend her sons?
Oh, yeah.
They have... it's a dramatisation of her in court defending her sons. It's actually really good. It's really, really good. It's available on YouTubes. On the YouTubes.
The YouTubes. On the tubes.
If you search for The Witness Ma Barker, you'll find it. It's excellent, actually. It's really good. 1961.
Wow, cool. So, characters based on... extraordinarily loosely based on Ma Barker. You would also find in Batman... In the 1966 TV show Batman, there was Shelley Winters played a character called Ma Parker.
Oh yes, she did.
Mob boss.
Shelley Winters would make a really good mob boss, a good mole.
There's Ida Lupino in the Manhunter TV series played Ma Gantry. In the 1985 film The Goonies, you have a character called Mama Fratelli, leader of the Fratelli family gang. And in DuckTales, you've got Ma Beagle, Disney's Beagle Boys. They've also been talked about in the film Public Enemies. There's the FBI story with Jimmy Stewart. All of these about the era, so all of the characters would have been mentioned in at one point or another.
Yeah.
But yeah, the big ones is probably White Heat, maybe the FBI story. Then there's Ma Barker's Killer Brood, 1960. It refers to her as a sadistic master of crime and an evil genius. It portrays, according to the write-up, it portrays her controlling a gang that includes John Dillinger and Babyface Nelson and outwitting their rival, Machine Gun Kelly. Like, what?
Cross-contamination going on there. It's all right, isn't it?
It's all right. On the notion of Ma Barker as a criminal mastermind.
Yep.
So here's a quote from Alvin Karpis. He said, "Ma was always somebody in our lives. She was somebody we looked after and took with us when we moved city to city, hideout to hideout. It's no insult to Ma's memory. She didn't have the know-how to direct us on a robbery. It would not have occurred to her to get involved in our business, and we always made it a point of only discussing our scores when she wasn't around. We'd leave her at home when we were arranging a job, or we'd send her to a movie. Ma saw a lot of movies."
Okay. Well, he's either dissolving her responsibility of it all, or he's going, no, she's just our mum who probably knows we're not doing the best things, but is keeping stum.
I think that's probably closer to the truth. Yeah. I don't think she was the mastermind.
So it's possible that the FBI, having killed her, said, well, she was the head of the gang.
Sure, yeah. Remarketed it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
Great, let it lie. That's my policy. Let it lie.
That's all for this time. If you want to know more about what we've talked about on this episode, then just Google it or something. You can listen to all of our previous episodes on our website. That's www.truecrimediary.co.uk. Please remember to leave a review on your podcast provider if you can, or you can email us. That's stuff@truecrimediary.co.uk. My thanks to Jed and Rue and to all of you for listening, and we'll see you again on next date in our True Crime Diary.